Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. It's been a little while since I posted a video on YouTube, and I just thought it would be interesting to share my next project with you. I've decided that having got into bikepacking in quite a big way, that I would try and build up over the winter a mountain bike, a hardtail mountain bike from scratch. So to that end, I've pushed the button and I've bought this extra large Sonder Frontier bike frame. It's 148 boost spacing at the back, which I think is kind of like the regular dimension these days. It's got a tapered steerer tube at the front. It's an alloy frame. It wasn't hugely expensive. So over the next few days I'm going to be attempting to source the parts and gradually build it up. So I thought I would share that process with you. I've already come across some kind of issues from a point of view of a complete novice, particularly the bottom bracket and the chain sets that are appropriate for a boost frame. Anyway, we'll go through that when we get to it. But I've already found in my box of parts a compatible seat post. So hope you'll join me and see how we get on with this build up from scratch. So I'm going to make a start. I've got the bike or the frame into the work stand. It's a useful thing to have, and I've got an assortment of components ready to go. Some of them are new, and some of them I managed to find second hand, and they're mostly Shimano Diore, different sort of grades of Shimano Diore. So normally it's best to put the cables in. There's internal routing here, and they normally recommend doing that before you put your bottom bracket in, because sometimes the cables go over the top of the bottom bracket, so it's easy to access the cables underneath in here. But in my case, the cables pop out underneath the bottom end here, and then they go underneath the bottom bracket and down to the brakes and the derailleur. But I reckon first of all, the big deal for me is to try and get these new forks fitted. This is RockShox Reba, so we'll make a start with that. So I've got all the bits that I need to fit the headset. These are the bits that go on the bottom. That's the crown race that goes onto the fork, and I need to knock that down to the base here. And then there's the bottom bearing on the headset, and then all the components for the top. So eventually the fork will come through, and once I get the crown race on, that's the next job. I'll start installing the headset here, and then we can work out the height that I want my handlebars. So I found a bit of pipe that goes on here and then clears this flared out part of the tube and fits onto the crown race, and I'm just tapping it down. There's some grease on there that I've made it a little bit easier, but that looks like it's seated properly now. Give it another tap. Looks pretty good. So just a bit of drainage pipe that I've found. Seems to work alright. So that's the crown race on to the actual crown of the fork. So before I go ahead and install the headset, I'm just checking that there's no obvious flaws or blobs of paint or anything in these bearing areas here. And they feel alright. So I'm going to get some grease in here first of all. I think the trick here is to use your finger for the bottom because it's a bit impossible otherwise. And while I'm at it, I might as well just put some in the top. So this one goes in the base, and hopefully it will, I might just put a bit of grease around the base of that as well. So just give it a liberal coating of grease. You can't beat it, and we'll see if that will just stick in there. Alright, so it does, I think. Right, we'll leave that in there. And then the next one is the other bearing. They're both sort of chamfered bearings. This one's the smaller one that goes at the top. And right, so once these bearings have got a bit of grease on them, we've put grease in here as well. That fits in there. So the bearings, I got the specifications for the headset from Sonder Alp kit. I just basically copied what they put on their bikes. If you look in the specifications chart on the website. So it's an FSA bearing. So right, let's just see if we can thread that through. That's nice, that works alright. So I'm just going to have to hold on to this now and put everything on. There's like a little sleeve that drops down onto there, and then a cap that goes over everything. Hopefully. Right, is that going to go? Yes. That slides down onto there. Right, so I've got the forks in, the crown race and all the bit at the top here. Everything seems to be in place alright. I've got to decide now how much of this steerer tube to cut off. And there isn't a great deal of extension through here. So what I've done is I've got some spacers available, and the stem. Being quite a tall person and maybe not as flexible as some, I like the handlebars to be quite high, and rather than cut it so that I'm going to be right down onto the top of the stem there, I'm going to put another spacer on. So that leaves a tiny little gap here with the fork steerer there just coming through. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to cut that just maybe 3 meters below this top spacer. The idea behind that is if this is too low for me, I can kind of swap it around and do that. And I'm probably not going to do that, but that gives me the option. And to be honest, that bit there sticking up is not going to be a hazard to me, so that's the way I'm going to do it. Right, so I'll make a mark. Got a sharpie thing, or a sharp pointy thing. Just going to make a mark around here, and then I'll measure 3 millimeters down from that, and that's where I'll make the cut, so that when I put this back on, it'll be 3 millimeters below there, and I'll be able to get the preload bolt put on, and then that will be the fork in place. 3mm down from that, and that's where the top of this masking tape is, and that's where I'm going to cut to. It's important to cut a straight edge with this, so I'm going to get the best hacksaw and a nice fresh blade and cut through it. So at this stage now I've got the forks in this gadget here, which clamps onto the top end of the fork and then gives me a bit of a guide to make sure I get a straight cut with my hacksaw. That's it. Just need to file the burrs off, make it a bit more finished, but that's the amount that I've sawn off, tiny bit. We'll see how we go. Lovely. The stem, and then this final spacer. Yeah, that's pretty good. So we've now got space for the headset to be installed. The next bit though is to put the star nut inside here, and you definitely need a star nut insertion tool for that, because it needs to go in absolutely horizontally. So we'll do that next. So the star nut has to go inside this the top end of the tube here, and the only way of getting that in is to use this insertion tool. Well, the only reliable way anyway. So you screw that onto the top there, insert it into this kind of sleeve, and then the sleeve slides over here, and you basically pound that in until it stops, and then that's the correct depth. Sounds like it. Yeah, so we've gone right up to the top there. Just need to undo that bit. Alright, and that is the star nut inserted. And then the final piece in the jigsaw is the stem cap and the bolt that hopefully will, yes, insert nicely into there. That's it. So once I turn that hopefully, well yeah, it's holding the fork. I don't really need to do too much more to that now really, just want that held in place. So that's the headset fitted, and the stem and the forks, so we're well on the way. The next thing I'm going to do now is put the handlebars in and then start on with this internal cable routing. Great. So these are the handlebars I've opted for. They've got a kind of swept back design, which I think will suit my style of riding pretty well. They're from a company called, in the UK, called Planet X, and they're the On One OGs, OG. They're not quite as wide as I thought they would be, but we'll give them a try. Right, so I'm going to thread this handlebar through the handlebar stem here. Yeah, that looks good. Don't need to be too precise at this minute. Just need to have somewhere to mount the levers, and then I can get the lengths of the brake lines done accurately. So that'll do for now. Right, so I've got this lever and brake caliper, well both brake calipers, front and back. They're Shimano Diore, made in Malaysia, M6120. So that's the brake caliper. In the UK, maybe everywhere else, I don't know, but we have our back brake on the left hand side. I'm not going to pull the trigger, and then the cable goes round the stem here and then through that port there, down through this tube, and it comes out of the bottom here and then over to the caliper. The question for me is, the brakes have been sent with the hydraulic hose already assembled because they're second hand. The thing for me now is this going to be long enough? The question then is, how do I get the cable that's full of mineral oil through here? Because I've got to detach either the caliper or the cable from the lever. I think it's easiest for me to go down the tube, so I'm probably going to take the cable off here and see what happens. So for this job I've got an 8mm spanner. There's a little bolt there, probably with a bit of tension on it, so we're just going to undo that. Alright, so that's come off there. Right, so that's a little olive. I'm going to try and keep that upright if I can. So I've had to shorten the cable by that much. Whether that's crucial or not, I don't know, we'll find out. I'm going to be able now to insert the cable down into the frame. So that's going in nicely. I can feel that it's come up against the bottom bracket shell, so I'll have a look and see if I can fish it out from underneath there. So I've managed to get the brake cable through, and it's now just popped out of the bottom of the frame here. Bit of a struggle, as I thought it would be, but I managed to contrive a little bit of a hook on some wire here just to get behind the cable and pull it through. And I'm thinking that at the same time I ought to now put the outer core of the gear cable through, but I'm going to do that on this side because the derailleur is always on the right hand side, isn't it? So that'll come across the stem and down through this port, and it's a kind of closed cable all the way through, so I need to get this in and see if we can get it out at the bottom. So I've got both cables sticking out of the bottom of the tube now. I'm going to try and connect up the brake cable. Looks like even though I've cut the hose a little bit off the end of it, it does track along here. There's some little brackets here for the hose to stick into, and it looks like the hose is still going to be the right length for the caliper. So I'm going to fit the hose next. So I've got the tools now to get the cable housed into the caliper. So first things first, that's the end of my cable, and there's a little grommet here that needs to go into the very end. And to do that, there's a tool that will help us insert it. So I've got it attached now down at the caliper end. It's coming up through the tube out here, and I just want to make sure I've got enough cable now to see me okay if we have an accident on the bike. Don't need any more than I need really. I'm going to cut it about here, not a huge amount off. This is a 1700mm long bit of cable that I got supplied by the local bike shop, so we'll do a bit of cutting. I'm using this little, it's called a book loss, got it off eBay. So you just clamp your cable into here. And it cuts it straight. Yeah, that's a clean cut. So I just want to see if I can show you the difference between the BH90 cable, which is going into the caliper and is compatible with my bike, and the BH59 over here, which was the incorrect size. The BH59 takes these brass coloured inserts because it's got a bigger internal diameter, and the BH90 takes these little silver ones. Okay, so there's a difference between the BH90, which in my case is the one that I need, and the BH59, which unfortunately I bought thinking there was only going to be one type of hydraulic cable. So there's actually two cables, the 90 and the 59. You need to work out which one goes with your brake caliper. So whereas before I was working hard to get the wrong insert into the wrong cable, now that I've got the correct insert, it's a lot easier. So I've got this tool here, like a little compression thing. I'm just going to tighten up the clamp on the actual cable, and then I can drive that into the end nice and square. Job's a good one, hopefully. So that's worked pretty well. Get things in the right order. So I've got the compression nut there, the little rubber shroud cover, and the olive. So I think you just tighten this up until you feel that it's compressed that olive a little bit. Don't overdo it, and then just put that back on. Right, the next bit now is to bleed the brakes and make them work again, because I've got an empty cable here. So I'm just in the process now of putting mineral oil back into the brake system. I've got the little cup screwed into the brake lever up there, and I've just undone this little bolt here, a little, maybe a half a turn, and connected this syringe with the mineral oil in, making sure I didn't have any air in this syringe at all. So I'm just gently squeezing the oil in, and it's coming out of the system at the top there. So I just want to try and get the full system. I put a little bit more in and then extract a bit. Yeah, there's a lot of bubbles coming out of there for some reason. So I think that's going to do now. What I'll try and do is tap on the system, just see if we can get any extra air out. I've applied the brake and it bites pretty solid, and while I've got it on the brake now and the wheels fixed, I've just tightened the caliper bolts up to align the caliper to the actual disc rotor. It seems to work pretty well. There's no sponginess in the lever at all, so I'll call that a success. So I'm just using this little tool here to tighten the plastic, I suppose it's a preload nut. It just fits onto the head of it like that, and then you turn it by hand until it's sort of hand tight, not much more. The cranks are moving okay, and then what I need to do, there's a little tab here that locates into a hole in the axle. I'm just going to press that home. That's it. Then it's a case of tightening these bolts here alternately. So to size the chain, you wrap your chain around the biggest cog at the back, and obviously at the front. Don't put it through your derailleur, from what I understand. And you bring it together. Yeah, right, okay, so we put that onto there, and then it's from that outer plate there. Right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Cut it at that point, and then that is the length of my chain. So hi again, just thought I'd give you a bit of a progress update. As you can see, I've now fitted the drivetrain, the chain, the crankset and all of the derailleur, got that set up. Things are working okay. I fitted a back wheel, which I already had. Made a really significant error though, and I've only just found this out, literally. This is a RockShox Reba fork. It's got 100mm travel and 51mm offset, which is the same as the other Alt Kit bikes. But what I found out, this is a front boost type wheel, and it doesn't fit. It basically is too wide. It's 110mm, whereas the axle here is 100mm. So I've made a pretty significant error there. Not sure what to do about that at this stage. Anyway, I'm going to crack on now and fit this front brake. I'm going to have to cut the cable in order to put the cable down this cable guide here. and then see if I've got enough length of cable to actually fit the caliper around the back here. So I've just cut this brake cable, and it's coming out at a bit of an angle here. It drops down through that cable guide there, which is kind of like where I've had to thread the cable through, cut it short, and it goes down into the caliper now, down onto the back here. But I think not quite happy with the angle of that. I think we just need about another couple of inches. So what I'm going to do is the cable that I've used or pulled out from going down to the rear brake, I'll use a length of that and just redo this bit of cable here. So I've attached the cable down at the caliper end. I've brought it up through the guide. Mustn't forget to put on these different sleeves and bolts up here to attach to the brake lever. But just to get an idea of brake size, of the cable size, I would say something like that. There's a little bit got to go inside there. So I'm just going to cut it at that. That's tight. Yep. Clean up a bit. Fingers crossed it won't leak. Now I need to get my mineral oil kit out and bleed the brake, because I've got to get some mineral oil into this system. So I've just removed the little rubber seal from this port here. I've got a 7mm spanner. I'm just going to plonk that on there for the moment, and then this syringe goes onto there. Just going to open the port, just a little turn, maybe half a turn. And then push this on to the top. That's got it on there now. There is a little bit of air in here. Just going to have to live with it, I think. And I'm going to just push the oil through. Just going to flick the brake lever. I've got a stopper in the caliper between the brake blocks. That's feeling pretty good. Just tap the line a bit. But based on feeling of the lever there, just tapping it a bit, doesn't seem to be any seems to be tight. So I'm going to put the bung in here, and then take this off, push that in, and then remove it. So I've got the little cap thing here that screws in to the top of the caliper. The mineral oil is kind of well flush with the top of that reservoir there. I've got the little rubber grommet on there, making sure that that's in place, and then stick that back into the top and just tighten that, just hand tight. So there we go, that's my bikepacking rig for the rougher trails that I'm hoping to do in the coming months in the UK, where riding conditions can be a little bit bearable, so looking forward to trying out the suspension 4. Anyway, if you've enjoyed the video, it'd be really great if you could give it a like, and thank you so much to all the subscribers who are looking in at the moment. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing, it's free to do. Beyond that, if you've got any questions or comments, please leave them in the space below and I'll do my best to get back to you. Thanks a lot, all the best, see you in the next one, bye for now.